ATM Hotep. I want to welcome everybody to the Seshu Ma'ani Medew Netcher YouTube channel. This is our home for our Freestyle Fridays, which is what today is. It's the home of our Divine Words Wednesdays, home of the Welcome to the Sabayit Dome, and any other things that we can come up with and do shows about. All right, so today is Friday, March 15th. And this is our Freestyle Friday, so I want to welcome you all to our Freestyle Fridays. And my name is Wujau Meneb Edi Ma'at, and I'll be running point for tonight's show. And I have other members of the Seshu with me as well, so maybe you all can unmute your mic and introduce yourselves.
Hotep, Ren-E, Amy Keraku, Akenyi, and she would just like to welcome you all to Freestyle Friday.
ETM Hotel, Renee Sean. Welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Let's have a good show.
All right. Sean, you were a little bit low, so just to let you know, there, but we can hear you. All right. So, now I hope that I could be heard and everything is okay on YouTube end. So I want to say ETM Hotep again, which means welcome and peace, and a shout out to everyone who's watching. Normally don't do roll calls, but hopefully you all can hear me. So if someone in the chat could also confirm that the video and audio is clear. All right. So I'm gonna keep moving forward, but just want to make sure of that. All right. So again, this is our Freestyle Friday, and we would always like to start off our endeavors by a recitation of the offering formula. If you've been following us, if you subscribe to our channel, you'll see that this is something that we do at the beginning of all of our shows. And it's just something that's become our tradition, and we've taken our cues from Dr. Raketi Amen, something that she has implemented for quite some time now. All right, so we are going to do the same. So this is the offering formula, and this is a generic offering formula, and all throughout the lifespan of Kemet, you'll find a plethora of these offering formulas. And they are the same in structure, but they may differ in details depending on who was the recipient of the offering formula, who it was for, and so on. So some of them may be shorter than this one, and some of them are a lot longer. But this is a generic one that we use for this purpose. So would one of you all like to recite this? And we could just recite the Rani Kemet.
Sure. So I'll recite the part that is transliterated, and that is Hotep Tunishu, Rasir Nepchitu, Netcher Neb Abtru, DF Beret Cheru, T and Ket Ka Apet Ches Menket, Ket Nebet Neferet Wabet Anket Nechaim, In Kani Imaku Aku Maheru.
All right. Okay, excellent. All right, so that's how we start things off, and it's recommended that if you are a student of the language, or you are either a beginner or advanced, that you take some time to practice and memorize the offering formula. It's good to memorize because there's a cadence to it. Also, it'll allow you to practice to internalize the meanings of these different words, so you don't have to go through that internal mental translation that we naturally do. When we're learning a second language, your mind is always going to translate, but the more you practice, the more time you put into it, you'll start to bypass that process. All right, and this is a good way to practice. All right, and also it's a good way to learn bits about the language. You can learn a little bit about the grammar with the offering formulas. You can see the different offering formulas. Like I said, some are shorter, some are longer. And we've explained the offering formula in one of our previous videos. So make sure that you check out our archives All right. And make sure you subscribe to our channel. Now, before we dive in, I also want to remind everyone to support the books that you see on the screen are the books that we produced, came out of our camp. The book on the left is our beginner's textbook. That's the book that we use for our beginner study course. The book in the middle is a refutation to the claim that the hieroglyphic writing system has not been deciphered. So the title of it is, Has the Egyptian Hieroglyphic Writing System Been Deciphered? A Rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams. All right, that's pretty much a self-contained book for all the things you need to know about the writing system. What is the writing system, how it works, and the fact that it has been deciphered and why. And it addresses point by point the claims by Professor Walter Williams that he made in the late 90s. The third on the right is a simplified Sesh Netcher penmanship book, A Lesson in Egyptian Hieroglyphic Writing. And this particular book is book 1, dealing with the monoliterals. All right, so this book is from cover to cover, it teaches you how to actually scribe or write or draw the 24 monoliteral glyphs. And those monoliteral glyphs are mandatory for everyone to memorize and learn. All right, so this takes it a step further, and it teaches you how to actually draw them or scribe them. All right, so make sure that you support. And all three of these books are available on Amazon. All right, so I want to make sure everyone is aware of that, and make sure that you join our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is by the same name, Seshu Ma'ani Medew Netcher. And join, and there's a lot of information, ongoing discussions, people share information, people ask questions, people will ask questions about things that they've heard elsewhere, things that they've read elsewhere, or just the sharing of new updated information and new discoveries related to ancient Kemet. All right, so make sure you join our Facebook group. All right, so with all of that business out of the way, now we get into our Freestyle Friday. So whenever we do our Freestyle Fridays, if you've been following us for a while, you'll see that we have a common theme on Freestyle Fridays. Well, first of all, our Freestyle Friday, the reason why we call it Freestyle Friday is because we go through the transliteration and translation method without any aid of any sign list or any dictionaries. So no resources. So it's from memory. And so that's where we get freestyle from. All right. And we started this because it's a good exercise. It's fun, number one. Two, it helps you to self-evaluate your skills. It allows you to know where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, and what you have to improve on. All right. Because without the resources, you're relying completely on your knowledge and your memory. All right, so from there, you know what you have to work on, work harder at. All right, so this is why we developed this Freestyle Friday. Now, on the Freestyle Friday, we go through a transliteration and translation method. And there's 4 main steps to it. And maybe someone else on the panel can let us know what those 4 steps are.
Yeah, step 1 would be you determine a direction in which to read the glyphs. So that would mean and one indication of which way to read the glyphs would be the directions of animals, human body parts, the way they facing, and the way that they're actually facing. So that would either, if they're looking to your right, then you will read from right to left, or if they are looking left, then you read from left to right. Step 2 would be the rigorous part of it, which you would identify all the glyphs and document each sign. Step 3, you will group the signs into words, and then you can search for the word for validation. And step 4, you will come up with a sensible translation.
All right, Dua. Okay, so those are the 4 steps, and those steps are immutable. Everyone goes through these 4 steps, whether they have a name for the steps or not. Those 4 steps are what everyone goes through when you're dealing with transliterations and translations of Rodney Kemet. And by the way, Rodney Kemet is the indigenous name of the language, the spoken language. Sesh Medew Netcher is the indigenous name of the written script. All right. Most people refer to it as hieroglyph or hieroglyphic or even hieroglyphs. And with the language, most people will refer to it as ancient Egyptian or more specifically Middle Egyptian, which is one of the 5 stages of the language that scholars organize the spoken language in. All right. And those 5 stages being Old Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, Late Egyptian, Demotic, and Coptic. All right. So just to let everyone know, when you hear us say Rodney Kemet, we're talking about the spoken language. And we hear us say Sesh Medew Netcher, we're talking about the writing system. All right. So now our image for tonight. Let me shift over to that. And this is going to be our image for tonight. Now, I know it's small on the screen. I just want to show, I'm showing the full image of it. This is the full image. And then I'm going to zoom in. And then we're going to walk through those 4 steps. All right. Now, there's a delay between us speaking here and then by time it shows onto YouTube. So with that, it's been kind of, a little difficult to have some interaction with the chat and, with us here. So we'll do our best, but we would like interaction. So if now that you've seen the 4 steps, if you want to go ahead and you see the image and you want to identify some things or go through the 4 steps, then by all means, type it into the chat and we'll monitor that and make sure, we acknowledge what you guys are doing. All right. And if you have some questions or anything like that, be sure to type them in. Okay, so this is our image. All right, so let me see if I can zoom in a bit. Well, while it's zoomed out, let's take care of step 1. I think it's we don't have to zoom in for step 1, at least for the most part. So what was step 1 again? Can you repeat that for us?
Identify the direction in which we should read the glyph.
Okay, so now with this particular image, what would be your assessment of step 1?
My assessment at step 1 is starting from the top. I would look at the first indicators, which would mean what would look like a dog or whatever with the long tail. I think there's a frontal face behind it, and then of course you have the below the snake or viper. If you look to they're all facing the right, so I'm going to read from right to left.
Okay.
Those first 2 columns or rows. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. All right. And how about this column here on
on the column on your left hand side,
mm-hmm.
That would be vertical reading. So it would be vertical right to left, and the reason being because you see the birds are facing to the right, and you can even see the gentleman down at the bottom with the stick in his hand. He's also facing to the right.
All right, and how about the column on this side?
That will be vertical left to right. The animals and the deity is facing to the left. It's a clear indicator.
All right. And the other ones may be too small. All right, so now we're going to zoom in. So this one particular image has multiple directions in which to read these glyphs. Now I want to make something clear, so for clarity for everyone, is that for step 1, you may hear people say that there's 4 possible directions that you can read the glyphs. And then some people get confused about that. So the easiest or an alternative way of learning it or understanding it is to look at it as two orientations and two directions. All right. And by orientation is the glyphs are either going to be arranged in a row or a column. All right. A row or a column. And as far as direction, you're going to either read them from right to left or from left to right. And I found that that's an easier way of understanding it and teaching it and for people to grasp it. So look at it as 2 and 2, not 4 directions, but look at it as 2 and 2. 2 orientations, 2 directions. All right. So that's been a bit easier to remember. All right. So now I'm going to zoom in. So let's get my cursor there. And we can zoom in a bit. All right. How is that? Is that a little better? Maybe some more.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so this is the top portion. And yeah, I believe that will be good. All right. And like I said, there's a delay on the YouTube side. I just want to make sure that the YouTube is showing up very well.
Yeah,
So
it looks real good. It's big on YouTube.
all right. Okay,
Yep.
so good. All right, so everybody's with us now. All right. So now, so Sean, can you repeat step 2? What is step 2?
Step 2 is the rigorous part. So we would identify each sign. And for those in the chat, you may want to, if you have a piece of paper, something like that, you're familiar with the signs, you want to go through and find each sign in your sign list and do the excruciating work. And you will write them down. So if we're starting from right to left, if you're unfamiliar with this particular formula, then you would just gather and collect your information and notes on how each sign functions in step 2.
All right. Now you made that sound painful. You said rigorous and you said excruciating. We don't want to scare anybody now. So, you know, and again, the reason one of the reasons why we even started doing this was to show everyone that is no need to be intimidated, and that if we can do it, then you can do it. So we've been doing this for 2 years, over 2 years now. We just started it back up as far as Freestyle Fridays. And so that's one of the things we wanted to demonstrate, that we're sitting here doing it, and, you know, we're not anybody special, you know, above anyone else. So if we can do it, then it's definitely possible. All right. So we wanted to get rid of that intimidation. All right. So now, okay. Now when you come to step 2 is to identify, as Sanshan had said, identify each individual glyph. Now, at the beginning, when you're a beginner, it will be a pretty daunting or take you a long time. You know, it may be not intimidating as far as hard, but it may be you know, take some time for you to do this. And that's because when you first come across glyphs, by the time you sit down and attempt to transliterate and translate something, there's some information that you should already have under your belt. So you're not going to just jump out from the starting line and make these attempts. All right. So you are going to have some information, some knowledge, some learning, some training under your belt before you get to this point. But even when you get to this point, as far as the glyphs are concerned, you should have memorized what we call the monoliterals. All right. And again, those are 24 glyphs, individual glyphs that represent 25 of the main consonants within the language. All right. Those should be memorized. So obviously, when you come to this point in step 2, those are the glyphs that you could skip, because you should already know those glyphs. You should already know what they are, the Gardner code for them, and how they could be transliterated, etc. All right. So at least you've got a head start as far as that's concerned. All right. So just as an example, I'm going to point out a monoliteral. This here, if you can see my cursor, is a bread loaf. All right. That is a monoliteral. You see it again here. You see a horned viper. These are monoliterals. So these should have already been memorized. All right. And so when you're at step 2, you can skip these. So step 2, you're only going to identify the glyphs that you don't know. And normally you would use a sign list, but for us on Freestyle Friday, we're not using any resources. So we're just going to see what we can remember. All right. So Sonnet Emicat, as far as the top row, can you, now we don't have to do them all, but can you identify some of them? And I'll just follow you with my cursor.
All right. Yes, we can start identify some glyphs that are not the monoliterals, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we have the offering table, which is the third glyph from the right. And that's a triliteral, which is Hotep, which will be transliterated as uppercase H, T, and P.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you able to see my cursor?
2.
Okay, I want to make sure
it's faint. It's a little faint, but I can see it.
All right. Hopefully everyone can see it on YouTube as well. But okay, you continue. I just want to make sure.
2, you can see it on YouTube.
All right, so I'll follow you with my cursor.
Okay. And then right after it, we have the conical loaf, which is that triangle, and that is a biliteral. And in this instance, is with the consonants D, I. And then I'll go to maybe I'll skip that one, and then take the next one, which will be from the top. Yes. So that would be the head and profile, and that's a biliteral as well. And that would be TP for tip.
All right.
Should I continue or just the very?
If you see any in this second row.
Oh, okay. In the second row, we have 1, 2, 3, the fourth glyph, and that's a sickle, and it will be a biliteral with M and uppercase A.
All right.
And let's go further. Right after the mouth, we have that will be the standard, and that will be a triliteral. Yeah, and it will be the consonants NTR with the uppercase T for Netcher.
All right. One more.
Okay, so we could take the next one. And that's a column. Right. And that would be a biliteral, and it will have the 2 consonants AA with lowercase a and uppercase A.
All right. Okay. Excellent. Dua. Now, in a normal situation, you would have to do this for the entire image, whatever it is that you're transliterating and translating. You have to go through this process. But for time's sake, we just select a few, as Emicat did, and just to kind of show how it's done. But now notice that when you do this process or do this step, outside of freestyling, you're going to use a sign list. And so what you're going to gather or collect is what the sign is. You're going to see how it can possibly function when it's used within words. So can it be used as a phonograph, as a logograph, or or a what's called a determinative. All right, so that's something that you have to take note of. Also, what you're going to take note of is how is it transliterated. So as you saw when she came to this particular glyph here, a sickle, and she gave the transliteration as M and then uppercase A. Now, a note when we say uppercase, we use two different transliteration systems. One is referred to summarily as diacritic system, and then the other system is called manual decodage. All right, manual decodage is the system that is case sensitive. So when you hear us say uppercase T or uppercase A or lowercase a, uppercase A, as you heard a second ago, that's an indication that we're using manual decodage. And we use this system online, in emails, you know, basically in digital media. The diacritic system is normally used in publications. All right, so when you're reading different books, different journals, different articles dealing with the language, the diacritic system is usually used. All right, so just make sure you have that understanding, and that was as a little FYI. All right, so now you know, we could identify some more, but that was sufficient to see and understand step 2. So now we're going to move to step 3. So Sanshan, if you could repeat, what is step 3?
Step 3 is where you group the signs together and to form words.
Okay, now why is that even worth mentioning? Like why do we have to do that?
Well, in step 2, we just we did the step of collecting the data per se, and now we have to formulate a word so we can understand exactly, group the words so that we can understand what exactly is going on in the scene. So we would have to. It's important because if we don't know what a word is, then we can't determine. Our translation could be, our transliteration could be all the way wrong. We can misinterpret the actual glyph.
Okay, so when you say group the glyphs together, why is that necessary?
When I say group the word, well, the glyphs together to formulate a word,
Yeah,
so
why
we
is that
can
necessary?
so that we can so that we can understand exactly, well, how they formed words. So we would need to know. I think you're trying to get me to say, how do we know what a word is, or what to look for in a word?
Okay,
Yeah, so we can get into the dictionary and come up with a clear sense of what it is saying.
okay, yeah, close. I was trying to get something that people have to understand, that Sesh Medew Netcher has no punctuation. So there are no spaces, there are no commas, there are no periods. All right. So when you're looking at these glyphs, all the glyphs seem to just run together. So the important thing about step 3 is to figure out where one word begins and another one ends, and vice versa. All right. So now that I've said that, what is a big hint to us to make that determination? What's the most helpful tool that we use to determine where one word ends and another one begins?
You just said it. Determinatives.
Okay, right. So determinatives. All right. So that's another thing that people should practice and memorize, at least the generic determinatives. All right. But now, as a side note, not every word will have a determinative. All right. So that being the case, you know, over time you'll just get used to these words. And the beauty of it, or the good thing, is that the way our minds are wired, the human mind, we tend to look for patterns. Okay, even from a baby, you know, we're able to recognize faces because of, you know, the eyes, nose, and the mouth. That is like a natural, instinctive programming that we have and how our minds are wired. So likewise with writing systems or anything, we look for patterns. We look for repetitive patterns, things that are cyclic or that are repeat each other. So once you start to recognize these words, you'll start to see patterns, and you'll start to recognize the words a lot faster. You won't have to go through this process. So again, step 2 and step 3, over time, you'll become faster and faster, more efficient. All right. But at the beginning stage, you have to have some stamina now, because, you know, it may take you a long time when you're first starting out. So just know that that's just part of the process. All right. Okay, so now with all of that said about step 3, let's go ahead and just identify some words. So I guess either one of you two can point me to a word and just let me know how many glyphs are in that word, and then I'll follow you with my cursor. We can start at the top.
I'll give you a word. Tip do F.
Okay, that's a word.
What tip? Yeah. Well, no. Okay, let me go back. Let's just make it easy for the viewers.
Because
in the first row.
Hold on, I just want to clarify, because see, because we have people watching. See, sometimes when you do this so much, you go beyond the level of word, and you just recognize phrases, and that's what you were about to do. So yep. I want to keep it simple and identify single words.
I got you. So, hotel.
Okay, and how many glyphs are within that word?
1.
Okay, and this glyph here.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And by the way, what does it mean?
Peace.
Okay. All right. Because that's also a part of step 3, transition to step 4, step 3 and 4. You're going to be able to look up these words. Okay, so that was one word. You have another one?
Yes. The word, well, the glyph behind it, it looks like a pyramid. D.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Why did I just draw a blank? To give.
Okay, all right, yep.
Yeah, I had a fart right there.
All right. Okay, so second row, identify any word in the second row?
Well, you have Netcher or divine, everyone. It probably sticks out, which is the flagpole. And it's just one glyph.
All right.
And then we have the neb, which would be Lord.
All right. Okay. All right. So, all right, Emiket, anything you see in, let's take this left column. See any words you recognize?
Yeah. We can go to 1, 2, 3, from the 4th glyph. Where's your cursor? Okay, yeah, I see. From that, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the quail chick. And that will be Imaku, which will be venerated or revered.
Okay, venerated or revered. All right.
And I guess the first one, is it a phrase? No, but it is a word. Okay, so we'll take it as a word. That would be the top glyph, the first 2 top glyphs, which will be owl and the mouth.
Okay.
Which will be Emira.
Okay.
Which is for overseer.
All right. Okay. Now, is anything? Do you notice anything between the left hand side column and the right hand column, do you notice anything that you could speak on?
Yeah, so the left and the right are pretty much saying the same thing. It's just repetition, and we see that a lot in the stadies where it's like reflecting each other, and that's, you know, kind of to keep it symmetrical.
Okay. All right. Do you see anything different between the two?
Let's see.
Yeah.
I see. What do I see? Yes. Well, on the second one, on the one on the right, we don't have in the word imaku. We don't have the quill check.
Okay. All right. Good. I was just making sure.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so that is pretty much step 3, and you know, like I said, you would what helps us out to parse. We call
Yes.
this.
Well, on the second one,
Whoever just came in, you gotta mute your mute your mic. All right. So like I said, on step 3, what helps us out is our knowledge about determinatives. And so determinatives are glyphs that are not transliterated and they're not pronounced. So they are only serve the purpose of the writing system. And they're called determinatives because they help determine the meaning of the word. All right. But they're also known as classifiers. All right. Because they help classify the word. And, you know, you may hear them being called some other things as well. Semantemes and taxemes. And taxemes will be the word, you know, similar to taxonomy, which is how things are categorized. All right. And this is something that is not talked about a lot, but every single culture on the planet has a consensus on the way in which it organizes existence around them, the people. All right. And we refer to that as taxonomy and ontology. All right. So if you have some spare time, make sure you know, kind of investigate those two disciplines of taxonomy and ontology. Taxonomy is, you hear that word taxonomy, especially in biology, biological taxonomy, where we classify living organisms. And so this is where you get, like, for example, for Homo sapiens sapien, being at the genus Homo, being a mammal, being a chordata, being a eukarya, all those kind of those terms would be in a taxonomic hierarchy and categorization of biological entities. Ontology is the more broader sense of organizing existence, and it gets into the macro level of a people's worldview, because how you organize existence obviously is going to dictate how you see existence, and it will underpin your worldview. All right, so say all of that to say that these determinatives, what people call them determinatives, in the writing system, this is how taxonomy and ontology is expressed. Okay, so do not allow anybody to downplay the importance of determinatives. I repeat, do not allow anybody to downplay the importance of determinatives, because these determinatives is a front row seat into the taxonomy and ontology of the people. All right. All right. So, can y'all still hear me clear?
Yeah.
Okay. I started sounding robotic there for a minute. All right. So now in step 4, so obviously step 3, we would have to go through all of the words. All right. And then step 4. Now, when we do the Freestyle Friday, it's kind of hard for us to do all of step 3 and then all of step 4, because we're not using the books, and for the sake of time, you know, we're skipping around. Like Sean gave Hotep, He gave D. He gave Netcher. Emicat gave Imaku and Emira. So we're skipping around. So it's kind of hard for us to jump to step 4 and then make sense of just these words in these various places. So as normal, when we get to this point on our Freestyle Friday, we just start back up at the top, and then we'll just go ahead and give a translation. We'll just walk through it and give a translation for a bit of this. All right. So but normally, like I said, you would complete step 3 in its full to its fullest, and then go to step 4, etc. All right. Okay, so let's start at the top. And basically we're gonna try to just come to the end. So we're at the end of the movie, the ending credits. So we're just gonna give a translation of the first row, second row, etc. So who would like to do the first row? Anyone on the panel?
Okay. Yeah. So that top row we have Hotep Dinashi. Now, yeah, Hotep Dinashi, and then we have Inpu.
Okay.
Ju Tap Ju F,
Okay.
and then Peret Hero.
Okay.
And that would be an offering the king gives Inpu, who is upon his mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And then this will be a voice offering or invocation.
Okay. All right. So you went from the beginning to this point here, and then we have a little left over.
Okay. Tea and cat. So we have offering of bread and beer.
All right. Okay. All right. And then this glyph here.
I think that was usually included on the voice offering itself. Is it the bread?
Okay. All right. Well, sometimes in an abbreviated form, it would be T, this raised bread, and then Henket for beer, and then a third glyph for Jafau, which is
right, okay.
Provisions, just all other provisions.
I see that.
All right.
So that would be an offering the king gives Inpu, who is upon his mountain, a voice offering of bread and beer, and then
Provisions.
And then the provisions, correct. Thanks.
All right.
Should we continue?
Yeah, we go to the second row. If you can continue, or someone else.
Okay, I'll let someone else do it. Or I can do it. Okay.
I'll do it though.
Oh.
Can you put your cursor on it?
Yeah, the second row right here.
Yeah, that's where we at.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You have the water ripple with the raised bread loaf. So I'm gonna say that's one word. I don't neat or knit, whatever. Imaku. Yeah. Cur.
That's right. You came a long way to find something.
And then you have Netcher.
It's about you. It's about them.
And then you have Ned Pet.
I know that you got a
Then that's just a determinative behind it.
Okay.
That's the first time I'm actually seeing that determinative in that direction.
Yeah, I ain't never seen it like that either.
Right. Yep. Pet turn on his side. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to say something about that real quick. This is a confirmation of what we already, what we talk about a lot is the fact that the scribes, and this is something that Emiket will be teaching on, which is the quadrant system that the scribes used when they wanted to have these imaginary squares and rectangles. It was so important to them that they would move some glyphs around and sometimes rearrange them. So this is just an instance of that. All right.
Oh, mommy, no. Daddy, look.
But so you gave the transliteration, but what does it mean? So give a translation of that second row.
All right, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what the first one is off the top of my head. The NT, but I'll say revered one. Before the great God, Lord of the sky.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. This first word, net, is of. It's the,
Of.
It's the feminine form of.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I see in the chat, someone asked, "Are we taking questions?" And so the answer is yes. So I know there's a delay from when we're speaking, it's like a slight delay, but yeah, by all means, you can ask questions, and we'll make sure we monitor the chat. All right. So, but we're gonna continue forward. So that's the first two rows.
Maybe we should give a smooth translation of the top one, of the first two rows.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So that would be an offering the king gives in Pu, who is upon his mountain, a voice offering of bread and beer and provisions. And this is of the revered one before the great God, Lord of heaven.
Okay, all right. And I want to correct when I said net of. This also could be for, like an dative for. So it's for the revered one. So make sure
For the revered one. Okay.
Right. So just want to correct that for the viewers. All right. So on this left column, now because I don't want to shrink it, I want to keep it big. So I'm gonna kind of scan from here and go down, and well, I'll just do this left column here since that's at the bottom. So left column, as Emiket said earlier, is Emi Ra, and then we have another glyph here that is not seen that much, and we see it repeated over here on this side too, because both of these columns, to the left and the right, they're mirroring each other except the quail chick. But we have Emi Ra, then we will put a question mark here if we don't know what that is, and then we have Imaku, and we came across that word already up here. And that's another thing I want to point out, that sometimes, now this is a picture, it's fairly simple, it's fairly short, doesn't have too many glyphs. But even if you look at a larger picture with many more glyphs, at first it'll be intimidating, just because the amount of glyphs there. But a lot of things repeat, just like in English. When you look at a page of a book, even though it may be a lot of words on the page, you may have 3 paragraphs on one page, and it's looks like a lot of words, but the individual words themselves, there's a lot of repeats. Like you'll see the word and, the word the, you'll see a whole bunch of those. And so this is the same for Sesh, Medew, Netcher in pretty much any language. All right, so we see Imaku up here, and we see Imaku right here. All right. And then we have placenta, doorbolt, and reed. So we have Kesi. And most likely, this is the name of the particular person. When it's determined by an individual, in this context of it being a false door, such as this, then usually just as a person's name. And you can actually see it repeated on this side too. So Kesi, so he's dressed in 2 different ways, in 2 different positions. and you can see the name Kessie. So that's who this belongs to. And you can also see it here, Kessie. And we can look down here. We can see it here, Kessie. We can see on this side, Kessie. Okay, so this is definitely this person's false door, or you know, the tomb of this particular person, Kessie. Kessie. All right. Now this particular glyph. Now I believe, and see, obviously this is freestyle, so you would definitely have to check behind yourself. So you know, if I had to take a very good guess at this, this is a oar of a boat, and okay, you got to mute your mic. This is the oar of a boat, and Emirah will be the word overseer, as Emiket said, overseer of whatever this particular word is. It deals with people who actually sail, who actually use the boats and sail, or you know, I don't know what you call it, navigator, a person who actually navigates the boats up and down the Nile, etc., etc. All right, so yeah, but again, you would obviously, we wouldn't be doing freestyle if we were actually translating. So I would look this up just to be sure. But just from my recollection, it would be Emirah, and then I don't remember what the exact word is, but it has to do with people who row boats, navigator, etc. And the worthy one, or the venerated one, Kessie. All right, same thing for this side. Both sides are saying the same thing. All right, so, and the rest of it is saying pretty much the same thing. So let's take this column right here. What's different, or what sticks out, or what can we give for this one?
Well, that starts with the Imaku.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Kher, also revered one before. And then you have Inpu, upon his mountain, and then the name of the owner of this daily, which is Kese.
Okay, all right.
So Imaku Kher Inpu, tap 2F Kese.
Okay, all right. And the other side is saying the same. All right. And just inside here, now I'm not sure if you all can see that good enough, but the glyphs in here, these glyphs here, they indicate numbers. This is 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. So this is given a list. So this is a continuation of the actual offering, and you can actually see the individual before an actual offering table. All right, so you have 1,000 of this, 1,000 of that, 1,000 of this, 1,000 of that, etc. And you see the name again, Kessie. These three glyphs: the placenta, doorbolt, reed leaf. The water over here is another dative 4. All right. So this would be 1,000. Then we have tea, 1,000 breads, 1,000 henket, 1,000 beers, 1,000 iu or ka, which would be ox or bull, 1,000 aped or apedu, which would be fowls or birds. And then here, it's hard to make out on here. Let me see if I can blow this up. It's kind of difficult to make that out of what that is. Can anybody make that out?
No.
Okay. Now, sometimes some of the glyphs that we can't make out, whether it's damage due to damage or otherwise, this is where your knowledge and kind of time that you have under your belt with doing this kind of things, where you start drawing from similar offering formulas, similar circumstances, similar situations, because nothing in Kemet is in isolation. So the more you do this, the more you'll see things that are alike. And so, yes.
Are you talking about that leg looking thing?
Right here, where the cursor is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't see that at all.
Okay, I was gonna say that based on context, based on being familiar with these kind of offerings, the false doors, etc., this is 1,000 of these different items, and this is Shes and then Menchet. This is alabaster and linen. Here, all right, and then 4 Kesi. And that's pretty much it. All right, so let me shrink it out a little bit so everyone can see the whole thing again, or most of it. All right, so so now let's just let's just take some questions and have some interaction. Like I said, we do have a delay between us here and YouTube. So again, I want to say ETM Hotep and peace to everyone who's tuned in. Appreciate you tuning in on a Friday night. Everybody could be doing any other thing on a Friday night. But make sure you subscribe and make sure that you join our Facebook group. Make sure you go to Amazon and look for those books. Get the books and learn and join us in the learning process. All right, so and yeah, if any of you all see any questions, make sure you read them out.
I think his name Marcel. He got a question. Said, my question to Wuja is, can the Sudanese...
Hold up. Yeah. See, Unc has people pronouncing my name Wuja. My name is Wuja'u. All right. I'm gonna start correcting people because names are, I know what people mean, of course, and everything, but we just gotta make sure that we stay on point with that. But anyway, Wuja'u. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can the Sudanese and the Sudan read Netcher? And it's a 2-part question, so that's one. And do they still practice some part of traditional Kemetic culture, even though they've been influenced by Islam?
Okay. Can the Sudanese and Sudan read Medew? All right. Now, by that question, I'm going to assume that you're speaking in a general way, like Sudanese, like in general, Sudanese people, like the people. And to that answer, it'll most likely be no. Now, obviously, there may be some Sudanese people, individuals, here or there and whatnot, that have studied it and, learned it or whatever the case is. But I'm assuming that your question is along the lines of inheriting it, because I could tell by the second part of your question, by you asking, do they still practice? The fact that you say still practice, it lets me know or make me think that you're when Islam came into Egypt or Kemet, and now that Egypt is an Islamic country, or people are speaking Arabic and everything like that, and it may have pushed people south, which is where Sudan is. I'm assuming that you're asking, have people kept up with the culture, kept up with the language, kept up? Can they read it still? Do they still practice the culture and stuff like that? So that's why I'm assuming that your question, the place your question is coming from. And the answer is yes, somewhat, and then no. So there are people who still practice. And this is all throughout Africa. You can find some of the elements of the culture still being practiced and alive to this day, but done differently because of circumstances, because of environment, and sometimes a change of view. All right, but this is the work that our scholars are doing in terms of recognizing, doing comparative work comparing the cultures, comparing the languages, and so on and so forth. So what we can see so far, or what we can see, is that there's definitely some continuity between the various different populations that are there. Now to what degree that is different. All right, so I don't know if that answers your question. You got to understand your question is one of those necessarily vague questions, broad questions, and so you get a kind of broad answer. All right.
Let me piggyback off that, because it's funny he asked that, because I just met somebody from Sudan about a week ago, and you could tell he African, like he got the features and stuff. So I asked him, I was like, "What part you from?" He got, turn that down. He got a little accent, and I was like, "What part you from?" And he was like, "Sudan." So I was talking to him about it, like, how long you been in the United States, this, and that. And then I was talking to him about some stuff, just letting him know I knew a little bit about Sudan. I was asking him about some of the political wars going on over there, the country split and all that. And then I asked him about, once I got his confidence to let him know I was interested in his culture and stuff like that, I asked him about Egypt, because I got this charm on my neck, and he didn't know what it was. He was like, it seemed like we know more about it over here than they do over there in some instances, because I run into a lot of African people and they really just don't know about it, or maybe, I don't know. But to answer this question, I would say not a lot of them, because the ones I run into, but I mean, I wouldn't say there is none over there that do not practice it, but the ones I've ran into, they did not know nothing about it.
Yeah, that's a good example. That's a good example. And it also lets us know, we have to understand that our view of Africa, as it's structured and chopped up and it's demarcated into these countries. You got Sudan, you got Uganda, you got Tanzania, you got Kenya, you got Egypt, you got Somalia, Eritrea, all these different countries in Africa. They were not this way. And so the proximity of Sudan to Egypt, modern day Egypt, we would assume that the people in Sudan, because it's close, that, there's some kind of continuation, there's this, that, and the third. But we have to understand that you got different people. First of all, you got a lot of movement that have that's taken place in the last 500 to 600 years. And then you have different populations of people that occupy these same territories, and so it's a little different than how, we may assume on the surface. And, because I would like to think that, okay, people in Sudan, okay, yeah, let's go to Sudan. A lot of people call it Nubia. Let's go to Nubia and we could talk to them, man. Surely they kept up with the secrets of Egypt and they know the language and this, that, and the third. And then you go down and you find out that you come up short. This has been the experience of a lot of people who go over there with that expectation. But if you sit back and think about it, it's not really, shouldn't be too surprising. All right. And so anyway, and plus
another reason why I think that they not really knowledgeable about it is because how we started the conversation off. It's a lot of wars and stuff going on in Africa, man. Like, that's why he left the country. Because I asked him what brought him over here. He said war. Because he said he lived in Nigeria also for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And he was in the army and all that stuff. So it's like, it's a lot of war going on in Africa. Ain't nobody got time to be reading no hieroglyphs. They trying to figure out what they about to eat, and if somebody about to come in their village and slaughter everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of political wars going on over there. So
yeah.
They ain't really got too much time for that.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That was
good. Yeah, and I just wanted to add that the other thing that people have to remember is that because it might seem like because Africa is also like a big continent where it might look like the proximity is very close, but it's not that. And then to add on what Sibawujao was saying, we have borders, so it's not like this free movement. So you have to realize that people are locked in these sections, and it is not that free movement where you have where you get knowledge transfer and all that from other sections of Africa, where you'd be like, okay, so the different knowledges and cultures and traditions are maintained. So when you're locked in within a border for 400, 600 years, in that sense, and I'm saying that since the Europeans came to Africa, so that those are hundreds of years that has happened. So then obviously then there will be loss of different knowledges and traditions in that sense. So that also plays a big part in it.
All right, so that's good. So hopefully, Brother Marcel, hopefully you got a thorough answer as best we could, I guess. And also, just for people to know, Emiket, I know you didn't mention this, but you're from Kenya, and so I wanna say that because you're speaking from firsthand experience, understanding what takes place and what transpires, and the fact that you got multiple ethnicities within the same bordered country, etc. All right, so another question. Okay, I see one. Yeah. As far as my name, I know people joking about it. Yeah, like I said, I don't take it serious, but I just want to make sure. But see, this is the thing. See, I know when people are joking and they say Wuja and they imitate or whatever. But when new, like, let's say a new person comes on the stream or whatever the case is, and they see other people, they don't know that other people are playing, so they'll start calling me Wuja, thinking that that's actually my name. So that's the only reason why I always like to clarify. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not hard bent on that or that stiff. But I do like to clarify though. So that's all. Okay, so we have Roland Ray. All right, with honorific transposition, how do you know what comes first? Is it based off what came first, being read first, and so forth? Okay, let me read that again. I'm trying to understand the question. Okay, with honorific transposition, how do you know what comes first? Is it based off of what came first, being read first, and so forth? Okay, I'm gonna I guess attempt to answer that. What I think you're asking. Well, let me just explain honorific transposition, because that'll probably answer your question. Oh, he said, okay, when reading the names, etc. Okay, first of all, honorific transposition is strictly an orthographic phenomenon. And by that, I mean orthographic or orthography deals with script. It deals with writing. So honorific transposition has nothing to do with the spoken language. So you're not going to see instances or hear instances of honorific transposition when you're discussing the spoken language. Only when we're discussing the written script does honorific transposition even come up into the conversation. So what honorific transposition is when the scribes took the word for king, which is Nisut, the word for divine or divinity, which is, or some people say God, which is Netcher, those two words, and names of deities themselves. Okay, whenever these words appeared in a what we refer to as a genitive construction, where two words are juxtaposed next to each other, out of honor, the scribes would write the word for king or the word for deity or the deity's name first. Okay, and the most popular example that you can ever think of is the very word Medew-ntr. Notice how we say Medew-ntr, but when you read it, if you read it in the order that it's written in, it would say Netcher Medew, but that would be incorrect. That'd be improper grammar. So the grammar dictates everything. And remember, grammar is morphology and syntax. So the morphology and syntax of a language is its structural rules. So that dictates, that is the law. That is the ma'at of languages. For to say it another way, that's the rules. So what you see written is something that is done only in the writing system. So the word Medew-Netcher is an example. Maybe someone on the panel, we can name some more. So let's name some
Hotep.
more. Hotep.
This brother, Antoine Germain. I'll just add a little bit to that. Just in the name, as far as how the name is states, honorific. And so basically you're just showing honor to those terms, like you said, Netcher, like Medew-Netcher. So you're showing honor to the Netcher, you're showing honor to the deity or honor to whatever king or Nusut-Biti that you're speaking of. So that's why it's shown honor. You only see it in the script, but you don't hear it when we speak it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But let's come up with some more examples, though. So I gave probably the most popular one, which is Medew-Netcher. But let's name like two more. I always like to give 3 examples for everything. So let's give 2 more.
The best one I could think of, or where I see it most commonly, is in the Sinus. When you see a person's full name, it may go in a certain order, and then based on that, that's the best example I could think of currently.
Okay. But I mean, let's give an actual example.
Me, Ra.
Okay, say it again.
Me, Ra.
Okay, me, Ra. And what does it mean?
Like Ra.
Okay. So that's good. So we have an example. So we have me, Ra, which means like Ra. But when you see it written, Ra is written first. Why? Because Ra is the actual name of a deity. So if you read it the way it's written, you would say Ra-mi. And that grammatically, that would be incorrect. All right. So it is me, Ra. All right. One more example. Anybody? Nope.
Oh man, we can't even come up with one. You bring these alphabets over there.
All right, so I'll just run some off. So we have Hut-Netcher, we have Satnesut, Mutnesut. That's the mother of the king, or the king's mother.
Yeah, I was about to say that anything with that Sesh plant comes first.
Right. Hut-Netcher is the word for temple, and it means the domain of God, or the divine domain. Hut-Netcher. And like you were saying, anything with the sut. So we have Sa-Nesut, which is prince or the son of the king. Sat-Nesut, which is the daughter of the king or princess. Hemet-Nesut, wife of the king or queen. Mut-Nesut, mother of the king. Sesh-Nesut, royal scribe. So those are more examples. All right. So and as far as a name, to give an example of a person's name, the most popular one is Tutankhamen. All right, King Tutankhamen, or Nisut-Biti Tutankhamen. And the Tutankhamen, when you see it written, Amen is written first, but we don't say Amen Tutank. We say Tutankhamen. All right, so those are some examples that you could work with. So hopefully that answers your question, Roland. And we're gonna keep moving. And let's see. I am going down. If y'all see any questions that I may have missed, I'm just scrolling down. Okay, Geb T'Challa. Did the Remich people believe in the Netcher literally? Okay, that's a good question. Now, in order to understand that, we all have to understand the difference between real and literal. Okay? The Netcheru are real, but they're not literal. If that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, that discussion probably deserves its own show, but I'm gonna be very brief as possible. When we say something is real, there is a reality behind these concepts or notions that we call Netcheru. There's a reality behind it. But are the Netcheru literal? And see, when we say literal and non-literal, we're talking about literary phenomenon aspects or expression. That's the difference between figurative, symbolic, literal. Those things are in the same category. So I'll give you an example. What one popular form of figurative expression is called metaphor. So if I were to say that I have butterflies in my stomach, I don't mean that literally, but it's real. But the reality that's real is that I'm nervous. So nervousness is the reality, but butterflies being in my stomach is the metaphor, and it's not literal. So these different deities are real, but they're not literal. Okay? No half human, half falcon, half human, half dog, half human, half beetle, half human, half frog, half human, half snake. None of these things existed and ever existed. So no, they're not literal. And the Remich did not take them to be literal at all whatsoever. But they're real. Okay, so hopefully I explained that a little bit. And like I said, this deserves its own, its own discussion because it can get pretty long. And, for the time's sake, we're not going to do that tonight. But hopefully I gave you enough to kind of go on something. Was any other questions? Because I can't. Omar Reed says, is the walking stick also used for hem Netcher? Does anybody know the answer to that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
The question is, this is from Omar Reed, is the walking stick also used for hem Netcher?
The walking stick?
Mm-hmm.
No, the word hem is a different glyph in it.
Yes. So the answer is
no.
Okay. All right. So Omar Reed, that answer is no. The walking stick that's used in Medew is not the same glyph that's used in hem Netcher. The word hem is actually a club, and the one for the Medew is the walking staff or stick. All right. So hopefully you're okay with that. And what else we have? Roland says, okay, he says, Hotep, if I were reading it in a Sarek or Shin, the Ra symbol comes first but read last. Satepin Ra or Tuduk Amen. Yeah, so yes. And we have Satep. I don't know if is Satep still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so yeah, we have actually a Satep with us. So Satep and Ra, Mary Amen. Now what king did you does that coincide with?
One of the Ramesses. I can't think of off the top of my head.
Okay, but it's definitely Ramses, a Ramesside king.
Yeah, for sure, the Ramesside there.
Okay, so yeah, so the brother Satep and Ra. So we have Ra Mesu, or we have Waser, Ma'at, Ra, Satep, and Ra, and that's the name or the throne name, the Nisud Biti name of King, what we call King Ramses the Great or the Second. Waser, Ma'at, Ra, Satep, and Ra. Medi Amen. All right. Let's see. Next, we have Marcel. Okay, do they have a lot of... Okay, I'm gonna read this question.
Yeah, I want to hear you read this.
He says, do they have a lot of coons in Kenya? I already know the answer, but I want to know your answer. I guess he's asking you, Emiket.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Is it a lot of what?
He says,
you don't know what that means?
No, go ahead. I know I actually missed the question. What was it?
Okay.
He said, do they have a lot of coons in Kenya?
Okay, can we define this word coon so I know how to answer? so I know how to answer this appropriately. Who asked that? You can say, what do you mean by coon?
Marcel Amenhotep asked that question. But coon, you know how people say people are cooning and you know, I don't even know how to really define.
Like, it's like you ever heard of somebody being like an Uncle Tom, MEK?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
But is this in regards to white folks or what?
No, only a black person can be a coon. Like if somebody say you cooning, it's like basically like it is kind of hard to explain. It's basically like a house nigga. It's basically like a house nigga. It's like the slave that was in the house, and if he see you running away, he gonna tell on you. Like that.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of understand it, because
basically somebody who worked for the white man to bring down.
Yeah, in that sense, I would say probably folks in the government.
Folks in the government, okay.
But in general, everybody else is just regular, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
in general, you know, cooning is like synonymous with butt kisser. Like somebody who
so government.
All right. All right.
Keep it simple.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, Sister Kayla asks, did Zion translate the coffin right in that recent video? I haven't seen the video, so did anybody on the panel see the video and can answer that question?
I haven't seen it, but I think
Sean seen it. Sean had it.
So I think Jehudi Mahat might have something on that.
Oh, okay. Is he here?
He's not in. He's not in tonight.
In the chat.
In the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't answer that. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta rub my forehead.
Huh?
It's a lot of rubbing, Sean.
All right, Sean. Somebody give us a yes or no on that.
No.
Okay. So maybe we'll look at it. Maybe I'll look at it.
He said Christ, and he said the word Christ, and what he used was the hieroglyph, the open mouth, and the folded cloth.
He didn't say caress. He said Christ.
Christ. He said this is the earliest mention of Christ, 1,500 years before Christ.
That's
okay.
Great.
Now let me say something.
After he said that, there was a determinative that was sitting there.
Okay, so let me go ahead.
Which dealt with a man sit like in a casket, like where it could mean like coffin, you know. Could translate as coffin if I'm remembering correctly. But I was like, Christ? I just
Yeah, if it's the coffin, it might be going to that trying to go to that caress.
Okay. Well, like I said, I haven't seen the video, so I can't speak to anything he said in the video, but I will say that I have heard people say that before, though. So, like I said, I don't know what he said, but I've heard that before. And not having seen the video, I can pretty much take a very, very good, educated guess that if it was a coffin that he was looking at or showing or whatever the case is, that 99.9% of the chance that he was looking at an offering formula. And within the offering formula, it will have the word khares, which means a burial, or as a verb, khares, to bury, and as a burial or tomb, kharest, with a T, kharest. And usually in the offering formula, the deceased is being granted a good and effective or efficient burial in the West. So, and listen, that has nothing to do with to anoint, which is what Christ would mean. It has nothing to do with that word to anoint at all.
Right, the Christ is going to go to the anointment.
Right, Mashech in Hebrew, to anoint, or Christos in Greek, which we get Christ from. That word Christ, as in tomb, they don't mean the same thing. They're not being used the same way at all. Christ is a tomb. It's a burial. It's a burial. Neb Ankh is the actual coffin itself, and the Neb Ankh is placed in a Christ, a tomb or a burial. Ist is tomb. Christ is a burial. Neb Ankh is the actual coffin. All right, so like I said, I'm not speaking to anything he said because I don't, I haven't seen what he said, but I just heard other people do that, and I've heard other people show it, and you can see the glyphs. It'll be a hill, it'll be a mouth, it'll be a folded cloth, it'll be a raised bread loaf, but then the determinative, as Sean was saying, it is a sarcophagus. It'll be a Neb Ankh right there as a determinative. So I don't know if that's what he showed or not, but anyway, so.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned it, but I think the other place where we saw that comparison between Christ and Christ was a particular book. I don't know if it was Gerald Massey's book.
Gerald Massey? I don't
right.
know. I'm not sure.
There was a screenshot put somewhere. I'm not sure where I saw it, but there was a mention of that. And I'm guessing it was from that book.
Yeah, but the only thing I'll say just in general, and this is for everybody listening, in general, is see, overall, this community that everybody's calling the conscious community, it is not a conscious community in the sense that we think it's those words are being used. All right, this community has become a lot of things, but conscious is not one of them. All right, outside of being conscious, meaning to be awake. Of course, everybody's awake, but in a sense that everybody's trying to make it out to be the conscious community, as if, there's some information that's at a higher level and this, that, and the third. That's just not it. All right, this community that we're calling a conscious community is a community of adversaries, a community of oppositions, a community of fussing, arguing, and poor scholarship. Because what happens is a lot of people have gone down the path of microwave scholarship. They do things hastily, quickly, and apply little to no rigor, and they don't understand proper methodology for whatever issues that is being investigated or researched. All right. Now, that sounds doom and gloomy from the way I'm saying it, but if you just sit back and just look and take an assessment of what we're calling the conscious community, that is what you'll come back with. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to everybody, and it's not, it doesn't include everybody, but for the most part, that's what you would describe. And so when you see these videos that people are doing these things, you just got to be cautious. You got to be careful. And people who are doing these videos, people have to really, really work on their character insofar as we have to understand our strengths and our weaknesses. And we have to be honest in our scholarship. If you don't know something, we don't know it. And if you think you know, then it's okay. You want to share information and whatnot, but at least take your time and have enough care in what you're doing for others that you try your best to make sure you're right. All right, because if I'm doing a presentation or if I'm teaching something and I have an audience, then I should care enough about the minds of my audience that I want to make sure I do it right. I don't want to mislead. I don't want to miseducate or misinform. And if I do by mistake and I have errors, then I need to come back and correct it with those same people. All right. So, but going into it, I know if I'm going to talk in front of a crowd of people then I'm gonna make sure I do what it takes to make sure I'm correct, I'm right, to the best of my ability. Now that doesn't exempt me from still making mistakes, but at least I put the time and effort in. All right. But we don't see a lot of that in this conscious community. We see people saying things just to have something to say against another argument, just to have something to say in response. A lot of times we got to understand the difference between an answer and a response. Like, you could ask me a question, I could respond to it, but it may not be the answer. And that's what we got going on. A lot of responses, but very little answers and less accuracies. All right. So we got all be careful. And I'm saying this, but I also say this to myself. This is something that I strive to do at all times. And, you know, that's why we, as the Sesh, Medew, Netcher, when we have these shows and do things like this, we welcome criticism. We welcome critique. We welcome correction, you know, and we welcome questions. And on the flip side, we welcome, you know, people telling us that, you know, what do you call it? The thanks and, you know, all that good stuff too. We take it all. All right. So anyway, I don't want to make this too long. So I guess we coming to the end. Was there any more questions? Let's see. Okay. Kayla says, because he said the word means Christ, then related to Enpu, which is in this scene. Yeah. See, Enpu is, okay. For this particular scene, you see Enpu here. He is Tepiju F, which means he is he who is upon his mound or mountain. And Enpu is the deity of embalming. Okay. He's also given an epithet of being Imi wet, which means he's within wet, the embalming chamber. So Enpu is associated with the burial process, the embalming, the natron, the mummification process. So you'll see Enpu mentioned a lot of times around the word for Karest, which is a burial process, but it does not mean Christ. All right, it doesn't mean Christ. I'm getting feedback on my mic here. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't mean Christ. Let's see. Okay. Anything?
Okay. Do we know where the ointment and caress originated from? Because I've heard a lot of older elders say that as well. Do we know where it originated?
What, Christ?
Ointment and the caress. Because that's where, like, the ointment or the caress being the ointment that they received prior to the embalming or prior to the wrapping. And that's where they get the Christ. They're trying to become a Osar.
Oh, I mean, well, the body and stuff was washed. I mean, there's a whole burial process, washing, the whole mummification process. Actually, there's actually a good documentary, or I don't know if it's documentary, but there's a video, you know, discussing the mummification process, and I think they attempted to perform a modern mummification process in this particular video. And if I can find it, I'll post it inside of our Facebook group.
That's by Bill Blair. So if you do a search on Bill Blair at YouTube, it'll come up.
Okay, so there you go. But the mummification process involved, you know, a whole lot of different steps, and one of the steps was dealing with purifying, washing, and all that other kind of stuff, and anointments with different oils, unguents, as they say, and things like that. So now, as far as you know, coming up with Christ or the anointed and things, you know, see, I don't see this the thing, because if, okay, let's just use some logic. Let's compare this, right? Jesus Christ, he rose bodily, according to Christians. But in Kemet, every single burial had a mummy that stayed put. The highlight of Jesus, what makes Jesus so unique, part of his uniqueness and everything, was that he rose from the dead. He has risen. That's like the one of the main central themes in Christianity. But in Egypt, all these mummies are still there. That's why you see them in museums. Unless, people have, looted the grave sites and stuff like that. So it's not the same. It's just not the same and whatnot. So I don't know. Like I said, I can't speak to the video that I haven't seen. So I'm not even going to attempt that. But
that's you're talking about, like figurative and literal, and initially is something being real and not being real.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but you got to understand, in Christianity, these people who are Christians, they think that a man died and rose for real, like literally.
Right. They're taking what you said as far as the Netcher earlier being real, a concept, to being real.
Yeah, they believe that. They believe that wholeheartedly. That Jesus Christ died on the cross for the sins, and you have to be sold, if you look at Jesus as a product, like a product, a retail product, usually when you create a product, you want to create a demand for it, and then you have this product. Now it's gonna sell. It's gonna be a hot item. So Jesus becomes a hot item once you can convince people that you need him. In order to do that, you got to convince people that they are born in sin. So they go back to your birth. That they go back to a stage in your life that you could do nothing about. They say you are born in sin. So it is of no consequence to anything you did personally, but you inherit this sin where? From the original sin of Adam and Eve. So, boy, I'm telling you, these Christian marketers, these business marketers, boy, they got a good business strategy. They tell you that you were born in sin, and because you're born in sin, you need this product called Jesus to avoid going into this place called hell. And then they describe hell for you. They describe hell as this burning lake of fire, or this tormenting and this, that, and the third. Hell is all negative and a place you don't want to be. So they paint that picture to you, then say you're born in sin. You're born in sin, and if you don't accept this product called Jesus Christ, that's where you're going to go. But if you do accept this product called Jesus Christ, you're going to go to another place called heaven. And then they describe heaven. Heaven is this, pearly gate, white clouds, all the angels there. You got music all day long. In some religions, they got, virgins, pubescent maidens, and all this other nice, fluffy stuff. You see what I'm saying? So that's how it is.
So pretty much people are buying their way into heaven.
Exactly. So, so we can't, that those kinds of things, that's not how it is. So, people believe in that, and they have a right to. So
it's funny. I don't want to start nothing, but it's funny how you can believe you was born in sin, but don't understand the concept of being born to a descendant slave.
Oh, we about to start something now.
Don't open them can of worms up. I thought we was moving on.
Yeah. I'm just saying how people believe certain, can tie into certain things but won't accept other things.
Yeah, that's true. So okay, let's see if any more questions, because we coming to a point. I don't want to make this too long. So let's see any other questions. The word in Vegas, look it up. He mistranslated. Okay, doesn't mean Christ. And okay, let me just say this about that real quick. Like I said, I haven't seen a video, so I'm not speaking to anything that the brother said. But I do have to say this for people to learn from, that when you say a word means something, you're talking about you're in the domain of semantics. Semantics is meaning. And so just because a word sounds like something and even spells and looks like something, it doesn't mean that it means the same thing. And remember, meaning is born out of context. Definitions are found as a consensus of the authors of these dictionaries at the time that these dictionaries are put together and the words are included. That's a general consensus of a logging lexical items. But people can take words that are defined one way and use them in a different way to give a new meaning to it. So meaning and definition are not the same. They're not mutually connected. So remember that. So when people say something means something, you got to look into the context. Context is the mother and father of meaning. So if you see the word caressed in Rodney Kemet used in the writing, you got to use it. You got to see the context. That's how you can draw a meaning from it. So when people say caressed means Christ, well, wait a minute. That is not the word Christ. If we look at the word Christ in the New Testament of the Bible, it is not used in the same way as caressed is found in the context in Kemet writings or ancient Egyptian writings. All right.
One thing about that too is like as black people, we the best at using words and flipping them to make them mean something else. Because I remember back in the day, I mean, I ain't that old, but back in the day, we used to say, like, if you had a nice outfit on, we'd say, that's fat. You'd be like, damn, that's fat right there. We ain't calling you fat. We saying it look nice. Now, fast forward to today, the young kids, they say, oh, my outfit on fleek right now. So you know what I'm saying? The word, we good at flipping these words and making the context different. Or you'll say, these shoes hot. You don't literally mean they hot. You're just saying they look nice.
Right. Exactly. So that's that, and that's it. And we can use two diametrically opposed words and use them to mean the same thing. On the East Coast, we'll say those shoes are hot. On the West Coast, people say, oh, that's cold. And by themselves, hot and cold are opposites. But both people mean the exact same thing. So just remember that. We gotta understand that. And this language thing, see, linguistics is something that we take for granted, because very early in our development, we learn how to talk. We learn how to talk, and we learn how to read and write. Most people, and so we take language for granted because we start so early and we use it all the time. So we're numb to it. So we think it's easy, but it's really not. And to prove it, just really, really think hard and try to define what a word is. Define.
Here we go, y'all. This even better. Remember the brother asked us about coon earlier. Now, me and you, we couldn't give a certain definition off the top of our head, but we knew how to use it in context.
Exactly. Right. And that's a good example. And that's what I was going to say with the word. If you think about the word and you try to define what a word is, it's gonna be real slippery. It's going the moment you think you got your hand around it, it's gonna slip out of your hand, slip out of your mind. It's gonna be real hard to define what a word is. And if anybody doubts that, we can have that discussion. But anyway, I don't want to be too long. I'm looking through the comments, and I see I don't see really any more questions. I see everyone's talking, and that's good. So again, I appreciate everyone hanging out with us tonight. Freestyle Friday, we're going to keep this going. We did skip last week, so apologize for that. But we're back on track, and it'll be announced ahead of time like tonight was. And did I miss any questions though? Let's see. I'm looking for any questions. Wow, it seemed like that caress thing done took over the chat.
What took over?
The caress.
Yeah, because I'm saying a lot of I've heard a lot of elders brought that ointment, but I never knew where. Which I kind of understand it as far as the mummification process, but as far as the actual where it originated from, I have no idea.
Well, see, okay, this is the thing too, because if somebody's going to be anointed and still alive, then that's not the purpose of the anointment when you were mummified. You were anointed after you died. The anointing that you receive while you're living is a different word. It's kesi, to anoint. And you see these images of the king being anointed by Jehuti and Heru, or Satuk and Heru. You know, you see these images. I don't have one to show right this second, but if you Google, you'll see the king being anointed, and you'll see this water pouring out of the Hesi jar. All right, and those kinds of things, to be anointed as a signifier to your coronation and stuff like that. But in terms of these ointments and things that are put on the body, as other people try to talk about, that's when you die. So how you gonna be anointed and still walking around and everything? So you know, they kind of mixing things up a bit there. All right, so you know, as far as that part of it goes, so it's a lot, man. People got to really slow things down, and you know, just keep your feet on the ground. All right, so I looked through it. I don't see any more questions. You know, so I want to say peace to everyone. And you know, if you missed out, if you just came in late, you know, again, thank you, or dua. But you know, rewind this video and share it around and whatnot. Again, our aim is to educate. Our aim is to have fun. Our aim is to raise an army of scribes, because Kemet is a magnet for a lot of people. And when something is a magnet for a lot of people, it draws, you know, it draws the bees and the flies, you know. So we got a lot of misinformation out there about Kemet. We got a lot of pseudo information. We got a lot of people who are promoting pseudo information, maybe unintentionally. Some people may be doing it intentionally. But regardless, you know, pseudoism is just something that we don't need. And so our hope is to educate people on the language, because if you can't anchor it into the language or into some kind of primary source, then you have to understand your handicaps. And Egypt, out of all of the different African classical or ancient African civilizations and kingdoms and the whole nine, Kemet is the apex. Now, a lot of people get tired of people talking about Kemet, but I'm gonna tell you, even with the bragging that people do about Kemet, most of that bragging is geared towards the monuments, the Great Pyramid of Giza or Great Pyramids of Giza. They talk about whether they line up to Orion. They talk about the temples. They talk about the Sphinx. They talk about the ruins that are over there. But not too many people go beyond that and talk about the genius minds of the people that erected that civilization for over 3,000 years. And so, although we give a lot of credit to Kemet, we still don't give enough, and we don't talk about it enough. So when people are tired of people talking about it, they're shortcutting the wisdom. All right. So we gotta, you know, cut back on the romanticizing and the commercialization of Egypt, of Kemet, and really get serious and start to really probe and try to extract the wisdom that comes out of the civilization. But it can't compare. Nothing else can compare. Kemet left records. Like what a lot of people tend to do is that they'll want to go south of Kemet and talk about Nubia. They'll say, why you always talk about Kemet? Why you don't talk about Nubia? Nubia. There's more pyramids in Nubia. And okay, we say, okay, that's true, but those pyramids are more recent. And the fact that in Nubia, we don't have as much primary sources out of Nubia. Kemet, you got like a laundry list, a whole laundromat list full of a plethora of scrolls upon scrolls upon scrolls, papyri everywhere, coffins everywhere, tombs everywhere, temples everywhere, still standing all over the world in different museums, here, there, and so on. So it is the most fact-checking civilization of our past. I can't walk up to you and just make up something out of the clear blue sky about Egypt, because what you can do is you can fact check me. Why? Because there's material that you could check. But if I talk to you about an oral society or African society based on oral traditions, I can make up anything, and you can't verify that. You have to take me on my word. So we got to be careful. We got to understand the difference between the two. All right. That's how come some people want to stick down to Nubia or stick to these oral societies, because they don't have to apply as much rigor. They don't have to be checked. They got a safety net right there. They can slip up and say something. You can't check them. But in Kemet, you can. If somebody tells you that that, you know, let's say, what's a good example? I don't know. I can't think of an example. But whatever somebody tells you, you can check it against the records in Kemet. Period. That's just how it is. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. If I say that the ancient Egyptians referred to themselves as an ethnic group called the Remich, then you could say, all right, show me that. And I say, okay, sure, here. There you go. And you say, okay, thank you. And then that's it. But if they didn't have so many records left, or it was just a strictly oral society, and I say something like that, you just got to take me on my word. How do we know? Well, hey, it's passed down. Tradition. So anyway, anybody got any last words?
No, I'm going to add to that. Anybody talking about Medew and Kemet is in America, obviously it's false.
Oh, Kemet being in America? Yeah, that's yeah. That's now, you know, that would be crazy. And at the same time too, we got to remember this, because I get a lot of emails, right? And people inbox me, and we can't chase every claim. I'm just gonna let put that on the record. You know, there's not enough time to address every claim. Some claims are just purely ridiculous. And Antoine, what you just said made me think of it, because
that's why I brought it up. I got an inbox on that one. But just like with the Zion Lex thing, I mean, there's certain things like every time somebody throws something out, we can't piggyback off of it and try to, you know, make a name off of what somebody else said, or, you know. So a lot of things people have to use logic.
Right. I see Jehudi Ma'at made a point. He said that's why some say they speak directly to spirit or God, personal messages. And see, that's a difference. That's a difference. You got personal revelation, and there's no way to verify that. And you have a whole movement that is based on that. And that movement has grown legs and appendages, has siblings and children. And one of the biggest influential movements of the so-called conscious community is Theosophy, the Theosophical Society that's headed by Madame Petrovina Blavatsky. If you do your research on her and the Theosophical Society and all her comrades, you'll find that you can trace a lot of things that people talk about in the conscious community back to Theosophy, back to the Theosophical Society. Whenever you hear words such as the etheric or the Akasha records, the ether realm, the mystery languages, all those kinds of things is coming out of Theosophy. And you have to, and then when you look into that, you'll find that branches off from two roads. There was a scientific pathway, and then there was a pseudo-scientific pathway. The pseudo-scientific pathway got the road signs of Theosophy, and the scientific pathway, as far as Egypt is concerned, is what Egyptology became. Egyptology, they created a scientific discipline out of the study of Egypt, but then you have the pseudo-scientific aspect of it all the way through those other groups. And so people got to be careful. All right. Who's influencing who? You have to do the knowledge. You have to do your due diligence and see. All right. So anyway, the cure to all of this is for people to learn the language. That's our stance. If you see anybody walking around talking about they are a Kemetic priest or priestess or Kemetic king or queen, ask them, can they read the language? And if they can't, then it's fine for them to do that, but just understand that they're handicapped. All right? Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that people can't do what they do. That's the freedoms and liberties that we have in this country and in other countries. But we have to understand that that whoever does that is handicapped. So if you learn the language, language is DNA of culture. The only way you'll know the culture is if you know the language. The only way you'll know the language is if you understand its grammar. Its grammar is made up of morphology and syntax. If you don't know the grammar of a language, then you don't know the language. Period. And so this is our job here in the Scribal Institute and the Sesh mdw-ntr. This is what we do. This is what we push. We encourage people to learn a language. Whether it's with us or without us, go learn the language. Then open your mouth and talk about Kemet. Other than that, hey, knock yourself out, take a trip to Kemet, have a good time, you know, admire it and all that kind of stuff. But don't attempt to influence people until you do your work. All right, so that's all I have to say. And if nobody else has anything to say, we could close it out. But I'm gonna make sure anybody has any closing words. Nope. All right. So again, dua for everyone tuning in, and we'll be here next Friday again on Freestyle Friday with a different picture. And hopefully, if you have any questions, remember, join our Facebook group, and we could continue the conversations. All right. So with that, I will say, oops, Shem Hotep. I'll see you all next time.